Nikki P, what's up, motherfucker? How we doing?
Good, Manny. Good to see you again.
Good to see you again, brother. I don't know if people realize this, whoever fucking is out there watching this, but you have no idea what questions I'm gonna ask or how this thing goes. We just
No,
got
that's
free flow, huh?
yeah. I kind of like coming in blind.
Okay, good. So, what I did for this episode and what we're gonna do for the next two episodes is kind of like talk about like stages in our lives that have brought us to become who we are today. And when I look at my life, I can think of like three distinct periods and three different kind of attitudes and personas that I carried through those periods that kind of like help shape me into who I am today. And so this kind of also gets drawn from last episode where you mentioned that what keeps you fighting on is looking at what it took for you to get here, right? And in creating this videos and talking about what we're doing here, we've been talking about sharing our own narrative and our lived experience. And with that, comes like doing the hard work and digging up like what made you you and understanding why you are the way you are. So what I want to do in these next three episodes is kind of take a free flow journey into like what shapes us. And so for me, looking back on like my adolescence and like growing up as a kid, like for me, it started in Mexico, right? And I grew up really poor, but I didn't know I was poor. Like when we were in Mexico, like everybody around us was poor. So it was just like I was ignorant to the fact of what was going on in my household, later on in my surroundings. And so I was just like a little kid kind of playing, and I'll get more into that as we go on. But like when you can think back as like your early childhood, like what was that like for you?
Uh, when I was really young, I don't really remember much of it. I just remember that like I just wanted to do right by like my parents. Like I just remember trying to do my best to just do the right thing. So like, and I guess doing the right thing obviously was um kind of set up by like my parents and you know their ideas of like what the right thing is to do. Um, but otherwise, like when I was really young, like that was about it. It was just trying to like do the right thing.
So for me, like when I was a kid, I don't know how it happened, but the relationship that I have with my mom now, I had back then. Like I said, like we were poor as fuck, and we didn't have much. And I recognized that even though I didn't realize like what poverty was. So I didn't ask for much. And so I think that's what kind of made the relationship between my mom and I strong, is that it's just like I wasn't asking for shit where like normal kids are like, I want this, I want that. And parents are like, no, I can't get you that. Right. And so we were poor. I didn't realize it. And there were people that I looked up to in my household. Like my grandfather was like a big figure for me, like because he ran the household in a certain way, right? And I was ignorant as a little kid. Again, I just looked up to him because he was like the father figure. Little did I know that like it was like a dominating feature of his as to how he ran his household. And I barely remember it, but I remember he'd beat the shit out of his kids. And I was just lucky that I didn't get the shit beat out of me. So though as a kid, I'm just like living carefree, like the realities of like the world in which I was living in were a lot wider than I understood. And so looking back at how that affects me now, it's just like it affects me deeply because I grew up with like this macho kind of persona that I looked up to, but that was a shitty persona to look up to, right? So it's just like, though I understood my immediate surroundings that I thought, I really didn't.
Yeah, I had my stepdad. His name's Brian. Step into my life when I was about 13. No, maybe younger, more like 10. Um, and he added another layer to what I would consider like manhood, I guess, or just another sense. It just added another layer to me and understand like what it meant to be like a man, because he holds himself in a pretty strong stature, um, big athletic guy, but also like firm but fair kind of a guy. So that gave me like a more texture and understanding in like what it meant to be like I said, want to do the right thing when I was young, but he kind of gave me more focus and not only how to do the right thing, but to be firm and fair about it. And again, we talked about this in the first one about being like kind of true to yourself and like carrying yourself with a certain layer of like confidence. So I had this person come into my life that kind of like helped pick me up to a level that I was unaware of at the time when I was young.
Okay, so that's crazy to me because again, like I said, in Mexico, I was just kind of carefree, right? At the age of 7, we came to the United States, and that's where I like felt poor, right? It's not like everyone around me was the same. Now there was like these disparities of wealth. And like I saw that when I went to school wearing the same shit like for a couple days in a row. It's just like you're this dirty little Mexican kid. I didn't speak English. So bam, that was another setback. I didn't realize like people have a whole family. I didn't have a dad around, right? And I felt that and I wore that. And like it started making me feel a certain way. And it's just like the fact that I didn't have a dad around, like that's when I started questioning. It's like, well, fuck, how could, like, what is a dad supposed to teach me? Like, what am I not knowing? Like, how did having a stepdad like that influence you into understanding manhood? And what did you think manhood was, or what do you think manhood is now?
It really helped me quite a bit. I still like thank him to this day for being in my life and committing himself to teaching me new things and how to work with my hands and how to be emotionally a lot of things that he would kind of remind me of as being like emotionally intelligent and emotionally responsible, which kind of sounds like a kind of a easy thing to think about, but it's really a lot more challenging than that, and it's being really economic and smart about like where you're putting yourself and your intention and your heart. But um along with that, he taught me a lot of responsibility and how like the women in your life or the matriarchs, like you owe them a certain respect and you have to carry yourself in a certain way. So he gave me a lot of insight that I again was like totally unaware of when I had gotten to this point, and it was extremely helpful to have this other person um, in my life. And as far as like defining manhood, I think it's really about um, responsibility and taking care of said responsibilities. For me, at least, that's how I'm defining it now: is um, taking care of your duties and responsibilities.
And so from what you're saying about your stepdad, about being intentional about your emotions and how you feel and how you look at the world, I see that as an aspect of your behavior now in adulthood, right? How did that lead into your teenage years? Did you look at the world through that lens? Because when I look at myself, it's just like coming to the United States and feeling like an outsider, not having a dad, being poor, like all of that shit just made me angry. And this is stuff that we'll talk about next week about like our teenage years. But it's just like I got mad at the world. I was just like, you know what? Like you want to look at me a certain way, we're like, fuck you. And then I carried myself a certain way in my teenage years.
Yeah,
Did your stepfather heavily influence your teenage years?
yeah, I was definitely really pissed off when my parents like started breaking up, and I would do some pretty like self-destruct. I had some self-destructive behavior, um, and getting to know him though, he didn't know his father very well. His father was kind of a piece of shit. And he wasn't really in good terms with him, so like we kind of had this conversation. Relationship had definitely changed. So like him and I could have these real talks where he wasn't blood, but we'd talk like we were blood. But it was nice because he didn't have, again, his emotions weren't as invested or weren't tangled up in conflicts. So he was able to give me kind of like this level set mind frame that was super helpful for me and helped me kind of like think through things a lot clearer. And so now that carries through because I feel like I can problem solve things a lot better when I'm faced with different challenges. And I think a lot of that came from our conversations about, you know, challenges that we face in life. And again, because he wasn't blood, it's like he wasn't trying to like coach me or anything. It's not like I had to listen to him. I just wanted to listen to him. And I think that was the biggest like motivation, is like I didn't have to listen to him. I just wanted to, because you know he was an inspiring person. But yeah, uh, definitely a lot of our conversation and what he taught me I still carry today. So yeah,
No,
big
that's
impact.
dope. Like I remember when I was younger, my mom dated two men, you know, for a significant period of time. And it's just like I was just kind of happy and like looking to reach out to someone like again, because I didn't have a dad in my life and I was just trying to fucking have something, but we didn't have that relationship and it never worked out. So again, I felt alone and that led to my teenage years. So it seems like having him around was actually fucking a godsend to you because
Yeah,
it helped out.
without him, I probably would have started continuing in some pretty self-destructive shit and like partying. I probably would have, honestly, I probably would have gone down a pretty fucking shitty path without him intervening, because I decided to rebel from my parents, not in an abusive or dangerous way, but like I just felt that their conflict was so toxic that I kind of wanted nothing to do with them or the conflict, and I had begun just kind of venturing into my own path, but with a blindfold on and not knowing, having any guidance. And he was there to be like, "Hey, bro, like let me kick you some knowledge and some game on where you're headed. I know where you're at right now, and let me just kick you some game because I've been where you're at." And without that, I would have been in a really fucked position. I truly believe that. So again, I thank that motherfucker every day.
Now, from an outside perspective, this kind of comes full circle for me because last week when we were talking, you're like, you need someone else to kind of help get you through those times. Were you thinking about your stepfather at that time, or was that just something that naturally came out? And now when you bring it up, it comes full circle.
Yeah, I mean, at the time, I think I was too young to understand that concept of like, but also I had lost a lot of my support at that time, and I was feeling alone, and having him at that point now, especially now that I'm looking back, was really really huge. So I didn't know it then, but looking back, I see it now, and if anything, I see it uh, uh, in much more of an like exponential factor than what I considered when I was younger.
And so if you could describe like those childhood sentiments till like I'd say maybe 13, what do you think your makeup was? Like if you could describe it in just a few words
Of who I was when I was 13.
of as a kid until 13.
Uh, Smart. And I don't mean like book smart. I just felt like I was smart, like witful, but and pretty responsible. I think I was really responsible as a young kid up until 13.
It's crazy to me because I still see you that way now. And when I look at myself as a kid back then, I would say emotional, which is still something I'm highly emotional now. And I
Mhm.
would say loyal. Like I held my family in such esteem and I held my mom in such esteem. And it was just like I was confused and I didn't know this like everything that was going on around me, which is kind of like what led me to my teenage years. But I would say that those things that we kind of carry then still kind of carry us to who we are now. And
Mhm.
so, kind of leading into next week, how do you think you would describe your teenage years?
Uh, a lot of experimentation, but a lot of experimentation, both in like terms of like myself, but also in terms of putting now that game that was kicked down to me, now putting it into effect and experimenting like how this actually fits in the real world.
Okay. I'm gonna say angry. I had a vendetta against the world and I wanted to be great at something and I didn't know what it was. And like gangbanging came in and it was just like I can be good at this. And so um that was a good little trip through our fucking childhood.
Yeah, man.
Get to cooking, get the job going.
Word.
Any song you want to set us out with today?
On that note, Old Man by Neil Young. I don't know why that just kind of sprung up into my head, but that song Old Man by Neil Young. I think he has a moment of like kind of clarity and reflectiveness on how his father um was a part of his life. So Old Man Neil Young.
I don't even know that song, so I'm gonna look it up after boxing today.
Put
Thank
you
you,
on game.
brother.
Some old man shit. All right.
I'll talk
Good
to you
shit,
soon.
Manny.
Peace.
Later.